Hi good lifers, welcome back to the channel. Today's video we are going to be making a DIY healing salve made from foraged plants and medicinal herbs that you can probably find in pretty much any location. So please join me for this video. So if we've not met before, my name's Nikki and I run Back to the Good Life with my husband G, who is currently on his way home from work. I'm here with Dilly the dog today, who is currently sniffing under the bench, but he's going to help me see if I can forage these herbs. One thing I do want to stress before we do get into making our healing balm though, is that we are not medical experts. Please do not take what we're saying as medical advice. It's obviously not medical advice. If you're not very well, go and see a doctor. That's what I'm going to be saying here. But these preparations, I learnt them from a master herbalist many years ago. She taught me how to make a healing balm and I've been making it for many years since. I've made it for friends and for family. It's been super useful. It helps fight mild infections if you cut yourself while you're out. It helps to speed up healing, And it can also help things like bruises and burns and abrasions and cuts and things like that. So all of those little minor injuries that we do to ourselves that generally don't require medical attention. Obviously, if you have done yourself an injury, please get medical attention. We've taken a bit of a wander around the outside of my house to see if we can get hold of some of the stuff for our healing balm. It's really cool being able to just see stuff that's on the floor and know what it does and know that it's medicinal. So we're going to take a little bit of a wander around and I'm going to point out a few things that I know what they do. I'm by no means an expert, but at the same score, it's kind of nice to know these things. So let's have a quick look and see what we can get. So the very first thing I've got here are brambles. You can just see them kind of here. I'll do a bit of a close-up. These, as far as I'm aware, are not particularly medicinal, but they do grow blackberries, and of course blackberries make really nice jam. So lovely to know that these are literally just out the back of my house, which is brilliant. I brought you to a little local meadow type bit near me. It's really good for finding all these different types of herbs and medicinal plants. This patch here is particularly good at finding yarrow. Yarrow is really good because it's a styptic and it helps you to stop mild bleeding. So if you've got a little cut or something, a little bit of yarrow in it, that'll do the job. It was traditionally used to stop nosebleeds. You can kind of scrunch it up and shove it up your nostrils. Hopefully that'll stop your nose bleeding. So we're going to pick a little bit of yarrow and hopefully pop that into our healing balm. So it can be quite difficult to spot yarrow, but if you just look in this patch of grass here, it looks like a normal patch of grass until you start seeing these little long things growing out here that look a bit fluffy, but they're not. So if I just take them up to the camera, you can see it a bit better here. This is yarrow, so this grows everywhere. It's an easy weed to pick up. And as I said, you can scrunch it up and stick it up your nose if you've got a nosebleed. But these will work really great. So I'm going to pick some of these and pop these in my healing balm. So I've stopped on my walk home, find a little bit of scrubland because I have just found my absolute favourite healing plant that you can find out pretty much anywhere. It's called plantain. It's not the same as the banana plantain that you may be used to, but it's absolutely incredible. It's anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial. I'll pop the big list of what it does here. It is an absolutely amazing healing plant. So we're going to go and pick it right and pop these in my healing balm. So I've stopped on my walk home, find a little bit of scrubland because I have just found my absolute favourite healing plant that you can find out pretty much anywhere. It's called plantain. It's not the same as the banana plantain that you may be used to, but it's absolutely incredible. It's anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial. I'll pop the big list of what it does here. It is an absolutely amazing healing plant. So we're going to go and pick it right now. It grows everywhere as well, so you don't have to worry about picking too much. So there's only a little bit of plantain here, but I'm going to pick it. One of the best ways to know that you're picking plantain is if we pick it here and we look at the bottom here, you can see that the spines come out from the centre. And this is a really good way, if I take it up here so you can see it a bit better, the spines here come out from the centre. This is a really good way to know that you're picking plantain. There's two different types. There's a slightly longer version, which I can't find here, otherwise I'd show you. But this one's just a smaller version, and they're really excellent. So we're going to add that to our healing balm. So I've stopped off at the hedgerow, and there are two things here that is going to be absolutely perfect for our healing salve. That is nettle and cleavers. Nettles are really, really good antihistamine, despite the fact that it does give you a sting if you touch it in the wrong place. And cleavers is a really good diuretic, so it really helps with anti-inflammatory properties. We're going to pick some now. These are cleavers. You can just about see they've got some kind of little barbs and bits and pieces on them. They're not painful at all, but they are a little bit sticky, so they'll kind of stick to your clothes like that. And this is how you can identify cleavers. So these are stinging nettles. If you touch the top of them, it's going to be really, you're going to get stung and it's going to hurt quite a bit. But what we're going to do is we're going to pop in, have the cleavers out the way, and just pinch off the top like that. And that way, once you pinch the top off like that, you're not going to get stung, which is obviously what we want to do. Nettles are really good for antihistamine, and they also help to reduce the inflammation bits and pieces. So just because they're really good at antihistamine, we're going to pick a few. If we go underneath the leaf like that, then we're not going to get stung. As you can see, it's got some stingy bits underneath it, but going underneath the leaf means we won't get stung. So we'll pop this in and hopefully add this to our healing balm as well. We are back in the kitchen and we are going to take a look at how to make this healing balm. It is really, really super easy to use. So all you're going to need to use is the plants that you've just gathered from outside. Grab some oil and grab some beeswax, or if you're a vegan you can use soy wax. You can also use things like coconut oil and shea butter as well. That'll work fine. I've always used just oil, and beeswax works really well for me. So we're going to get these things popped onto the cooker. All we need is a saucepan and a spoon. Dead simple. I try to use silicone spoons just because they're a little bit better to use. I don't like to use oily stuff with wooden spoons, but silicone spoons do just as good a job. So we're going to heat up our oil on the hob, keep that warming up for a bit so that we can extract all of that goodness from the plants that we've just picked, and then we can sieve them out nicely, pop all the other oils into it, stick some beeswax in it, and we're ready to go. This is a really super simple healing balm that anyone can make, really. The only mildly specialist thing that you need to pick up is some sort of wax, so like the beeswax or the shea butter. But you can pick that up from eBay, or you can pick coconut oil up from Aldi, so it's nice and easy to get hold of. I think that everyone should have a basic knowledge of some of the plants that are around us. We are very, very lucky to be able to walk outside and have a nature's medicine cabinet right on our doorstep. And most people have that as long as they've got access to some kind of green areas. Most of these weeds and plants are actually available pretty much everywhere, whether you're in an urban environment or right in the middle of the countryside. So having a little bit of knowledge about these is really important. So I just want to take you over what we've got in here. I picked these over a few days, so some of them do look a little bit wilted, but that's okay. So we've got our cleavers in here. They definitely look a bit worse for wear, but that's all right. Don't worry about them. But you can see that the kind of sticky weeds there. This is our little tiny pile of plantain. I couldn't find as much of it as I normally could. I think it's just because it's spring, so it's kind of early. But this is my favourite. We're going to supplement that, obviously, with our plantain oil anyway. We've got nettles here. I didn't get too many nettles today. I actually haven't got any nettles oil, but I'm not too worried because plantain does a very similar job. So we're going to have the same properties in there. And then we've got a nice big pile of yarrow here, which is really cool. Again, I'm going to supplement it with a little bit of extra yarrow oil here. So it seems like my microphone's given up again. This is beeswax. We're going to actually use all of this in our healing balm. This is the only other ingredient and the only slightly specialist ingredient you're going to need. But as I said, you can use coconut oil. I've got lots of different types of jars here. This is one of the ones I get from the range. Some of the other ones are these little tiny jam jars that you get from various places. I always keep them when I find them out in the wild, and I wash them out. I've got also this little tin here. This used to have toothpaste in it, so I'm going to use that and give it to my friend who I'm making one of these healing balms for. She'll really like that. This is my apothecary. It's a little bit unorganised at the moment, but it is an absolute treasure trove of herbs and medicinal plants that I have been working to preserve over the last few years. So we're going to grab a few bits and pieces out of here now and head back to the kitchen. So things that I'm definitely going to want in my healing balm include, I have got here calendula oil, so I'm going to pop that down here. What else have I got? I haven't got any cayenne oil by the look of it, because otherwise I would have used cayenne oil, but that's okay. Let's pop them up there. We're not going to use wild chamomile today. We've got some activated charcoal there. Obviously I'm not going to use that today. This is apple cider vinegar, that's kind of probably well over now. We've got some cleavers oil infusion here, but we're going to make our own today, so we won't worry about using that one. I've got lots and lots of cleavers oil infusion. We've got some more mushrooms here. This is clove tincture, that we use that for toothaches and bits and pieces like that. This is some dried beans that really shouldn't be in here, but I haven't got anywhere else to put them. We have got comfrey oil infusion. I didn't manage to pick up comfrey today, so this is a comfrey that I made last year. We're definitely going to use this. I'm going to put this down here. We've got some dryad saddle, that's a big mushroom. This is echinacea tincture. We're not going to use that. Echinacea is more for kind of colds and things like that. We've got something that looks like it's exploded over here, so try to ignore that. Manuka honey is amazing stuff. I've got this. I just keep this on hand anyway. We're not going to put it in today. I would have used golden seal, but it doesn't look like I've made any golden seal oil, so don't worry too much about that one. Again, this oyster mushrooms. This healing salve is so adaptable. You can kind of make it with whatever you've got in, but obviously I try and keep quite a few bits and pieces in. So I've got hops tincture here. Again, I would have used hops oil, but I've only got the tincture, so we won't worry too much about it. We're not going to use any of that. What else have we got here? Vitamins by the million. So this is an empty bottle by the look at it. This is meadowsweet oil. We are absolutely going to use that because this is a great kind of natural painkiller. So we're going to pop that in. What else? We've got some more B12. Nigella oak bark. We use that again for tooth infections. So we always have that in hand. We are going to use some more plantain oil. Try and use the smaller ones first, to be honest. So I've got that left. I'm probably going to chuck all of that in because I didn't pick up as much plantain as I would have hoped, so I'm definitely going to use that. Peppermint oil, we're not going to use them. We've got lion's mane mushroom here, which was from a grow kit as well, so if anyone is wondering, because we're not allowed to pick it in the UK, but this is from a grow kit, so don't worry about that. Good, none of those. What else have we got? Sage oil, won't be using that today. We will be using teasel root oil. Teasel root is a great antispasmodic, so it does really help with painkillers. So we're going to pop that in our little list over here. What have we got? Let's pop that back up in there. That says turmeric tincture. It's clearly not a turmeric tincture. We're not going to put any turmeric in today just because I've not made an oil out of it yet. White willow does exactly the same as meadowsweet, so we would normally put some of that in, but as you can see I'm very out of willow bark at the moment, so we won't worry about putting that in. I am going to stick some more yarrow in because again I didn't pick a huge amount because it started raining, so we're going to pop some yarrow oil in. And I think from the apothecary wise that's about it. We've got some proper beeswax from a beehive here. It's really nice, and some other bits and pieces. So yeah, these are all the bits and pieces I'm going to pop in, apart from bits around the back here, and I will meet you guys back in the kitchen. So when we were out in the fields, we were looking at some of the reasons why we might use some of those plants that we picked up. So we picked up the plantain, the nettles, the cleavers. We looked at the reasons why we might use those. Extra ones that we're going to use in the house here, we are going to use some meadowsweet oil. So I've got some in this little pot here, which I made couple of years ago by the look of it. Meadowsweet doesn't flower in the UK until I think end of July, possibly beginning of July. It's around June, July time, and it's got quite a short window. But meadowsweet is amazing because it contains salicylic acid, which is now synthesized, but it's in aspirin. So it kind of acts as a very mild anesthetic. So it kind of helps with pain. It's a nice analgesic. So we always put a little bit of that in there just to help that healing balm. I will put a picture of what meadowsweet looks like here so that you know what you're looking for. Another preparation that I'm also going to be putting into this healing balm is comfrey oil. Again, this is another one that I prepared a couple of years ago, so this is a few years old, this one, and so I couldn't afford to use the rest of it. I couldn't find any comfrey while I was out today, so it's always good to have that in stock. Comfrey is known colloquially as bone knit or knit bone. It can really help with things like bruising, bone injuries and things like that. We can help the healing there. So we always have comfrey on hand. And just to boost it up a little bit more, I've got a little bit more yarrow oil, which obviously I've had made for a little while now, and a little bit more plantain oil. I'm going to finish up this bottle here because there's about half of it left. I love plantain. It is actually my favourite plant to go and pick and use. It's a really underrated plant that you can literally pick up pretty much anywhere, pretty much all times of the year. And it's antimicrobial, it's anti-inflammatory, and it also has antihistamine properties as well. It is just a medicine cabinet in itself. So I really love plantain. Just going to cover it with the oil there. And this is just going to allow those properties to cook out nicely. And then we should have a nice healing salve to use. As you can see, I've not quite covered them with oil, but that's all right because they're going to work nicely. They are going to wilt down in the oil while it cooks. So I put it on high for the minute just to get that oil nicely warmed up. And then as soon as I feel like it's warmed up enough, I'm going to turn it down to lower heat. I might pop a little bit more oil in there. If you want to at this stage, you can put things like coconut oil in it and shea butter if you want it to have some more kind of healthy skin properties, but it's really not necessary, to be honest. As a side note, while that's cooking, I do normally try and use tins like this for putting it in our bags, but I actually haven't got any clean, which is why we're using any leftovers are going in these little jars. I'm actually going to give one of these to my mum because she wants some. So I've just put a sieve over our metal bowl here. So I'm just going to now strain over our oil solution. Just means that we don't get any other plants actually in our salve, because we've got all of the bits and pieces we need out of it now. Glad I let this cool down. So we should now have our oil solution in here, as you can see. Now, I have got a couple of oils that I'm going to be using that have got bits and pieces in them. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pour a little bit of oil from here into the solution, but I'll do it through the sieve so that I catch in all of the bits and pieces here as well. So this is the calendula oil. Pop a bit of that in there. Okay. And we've got our teasel root oil. Gonna stick that in there as well. Again, just so it's gonna, as you can see, we've got some bits and pieces there that have come out of it, but that's okay because we've just saved that in our sieve there. And of course, all of these bits and pieces are not going to go to waste. We're going to pop it straight in the compost bin, and that can rot down and then hopefully help to feed our plants. What I do is just get all of the oil that we can do out of it. We don't want to be missing out on any of the goodness. So just push it down nicely there. It actually doesn't smell too bad. I always joke that this smells a bit like pond water, this healing salve, and it does really, but it doesn't smell too bad. There we go, just squeezing it out there. Good, so all our bits and pieces done. I'm going to pop this in the compost bin, and this lovely resulting liquid is going to go straight back into this saucepan here. So I'm just going to add these extra oils to it. Get it in there. I want to use all of that plantain because I'm going to make a lot more this year. I've also got plantain dried, I've got it powdered, and I've got it tinctured as well. So this is my comfrey oil. I'm going to use a good dose of comfrey, probably about half the bottle. I think there, put a bit more in there. Okay, good. Put my yarrow oil in. Don't need to put too much of that in because we did put some fresh yarrow in. So I always do try and use fresh plants when I can, but sometimes they're either not in season or we just haven't got them around you. So at that point we resort to using preparations. It's always good to have these preparations in stock anyway. So meadowsweet, for example, you can make just a balm out of meadowsweet, and that would be lovely for things like headache. Put it onto your temples and bits and pieces that can really help with hopefully curing that headache. So all of those oils are in now. I'm just going to give them a nice mix around, make sure they're nicely incorporated. So our oil's nice and warmed up here. We do need to be careful because this oil was definitely quite warm now. So let's pop some of our beeswax in. Put a decent amount in there. We can always add a little bit more oil if we need to. Going to mix this around and just wait for that beeswax to melt. Obviously, if you want to make this vegan, you can use soy wax. You can probably use coconut oil and shea butter to do roughly the same job, but I find that beeswax is generally the best for this. So you can see how hot that oil is because that beeswax is already melted. What I'm going to do is just going to dip it in. It's really hard to do this with one hand, but so I can see here that it's probably not set quite as much as I'd like it to do. I'm going to pop in some more beeswax. The idea with this is that it's solid at room temperature, but not so solid that you're actually going to find it difficult to use. So yeah, that's all melted in. Let's try it again. That's looking a bit better. So we're taking a bit off on my thumb there. Oh, I think it still needs a little bit more. I always tend to underdo it when I put beeswax in, so I'm trying to really think about doing more than I probably would normally. Just mix that in there. It's quite therapeutic doing this. I find a lot of things that we do kind of on the homestead or smallholding, that kind of sustainable living, I find quite a lot of the tasks that we're doing quite relaxing actually. Obviously you can get quite stressed about them as well, but I don't know, I find these sort of tasks very, very relaxing. So how are we doing now? Let's have a look. So you can already see this is definitely a nice kind of balmy type texture there. It's nice and easy to rub in. I still think it needs a bit more. I might just dump the whole lot in. Saves me doing any washing up really, doesn't it? Putting it back in the bag. Okay, mix them in like that. So as we can see, they're pretty much melted already. Perfect. I'll just use the end of my spoon now. You can see it's kind of balling up there. And that's kind of the consistency that I'm looking for. A nice kind of easy to spread balm. There we go. Nice, you can see that there. Okay, good. I'll let those other two bits that are on the spoon just melt in. And now we are ready to pour this into the containers. So I've just laid my jars out on this table. As you can see, I've got the bigger one, I've got this tin, and I've got these little ones. It's just on a tea towel here. Jars can be quite difficult to fill. The easiest way I've found is if we pour our oil into a big jug like this one. It might be a little bit too much. That's okay. And then I'm going to use a smaller jug to decant the oil into there. It's like a science experiment. So that way we're only working with a little bit at a time. So I'm going to pop over here and I'm going to fill in this tin here. Okay. Probably fit a little bit more in there. Good, and then I'm just going to fill this jar up. We need to work quite quickly because, of course, we do risk it setting. But you'll get a feel for this when you do it. So we've got quite a lot going in there. There we go. It's not looking too bad. When it sets properly, you'll probably see that it will go green. And it always looks a bit green, which is why I nickname it the pond water. Very good. So I've actually got a lot more oil than I thought I would. So I'm going to go and grab another load of jars. So I've got lots to fill in here. Okay, so now I've got everything filled up. I completely underestimated how many jars I needed, but that's okay. I've put these obviously on a dirty old tea towel, so don't worry about looking at the tea towel, but I've just popped these on a tea towel just so they don't damage the surface at all. All I'm going to do now is just let all of these cool down. I'm not going to put them in the fridge or anything. I'm just going to let them cool down naturally, and I will probably come back to you in a few hours' time to see what they look like. Okay, so it's been about an hour and a half, and as we can see, our healing balm is mostly all nice and solidified. It's actually a really perfect texture, because if we stick a finger in there, it's fairly easy to get out and to use, but it's also nice and easy to spread like that, which is exactly what we wanted from there. I'm really excited about this one. This one's looking great, and I can't wait to give this to my friend when I see her in a few weeks' time. And my mum's going to get a couple of these jars, and then we've got a couple of other jars that we're just going to keep on hand. I always keep a little jar about this size in our first aid box as well, and then we're also going to pop one in the car as well. The only problem we're going to have in the car is that in a few weeks' time or a few months' time, when the weather gets a little bit warmer, these were going to melt. So what I might do in a few months' time when that happens is remelt a couple of these down and put some shea butter with them just to solidify them up a little bit. But it should be fine right now. To use these, it's really simple. Basically just take a little bit on the skin like that and then rub it into wherever the wound is. It is a little bit oily, but it will be absolutely fine, and then hopefully it will help with all sorts of things. So there we have it. Our DIY healing salve is ready. So just by foraging for a few plants and using a couple of preparations that we've already got in the medicine cabinet that have also come from forage plants around here, we've managed to create ourselves a nice, sustainable, eco-friendly and very natural healing salve for a variety of very minor ailments. Effectively for free as well. All we had to pay for was the oil and the beeswax and a little bit of gas to heat it all up. So thank you for joining me today, good lifers. It's been really good to see you. Sorry this video was a little bit late, but if you've made it to the end of the video, then I really do appreciate it. And I would also really love it if you hit the like button. That would be amazing. Until next time, please continue to be inspired by nature and let nature be your guide.